What are precise Chisa's biggest pros and cons? That's what I'm here to tell you today. My name is Juice, and let's get into it. One of the main positive points about Chisa is the fact that she is a universal negative status unit. What I mean by this is that no matter what negative status team that you're running, you're going to be able to slot Chisa into the third slot. Now I should mention that in Zani teams, she is not going to be the best in slot third slot teammate because Zani herself does not apply negative status, meaning that she cannot benefit from Chisa's signature weapon. However, Cartethyia is easily able to benefit from this, and I do believe that going forward, Kuro Games is likely going to design most negative status units like this, so that all negative status units will be able to benefit from Chisa's signature weapon, which is a very large part of her value. So ultimately, if you're a huge negative status fan and you want to invest into the archetype going forward, then Chisa is not necessarily a terrible pickup. I will say she is still a niche pickup in such a case, simply because the only negative status team which she's actually best in slotting at the moment is Cartethyia, and otherwise she doesn't really have many teams. But even so, if you really like that archetype and you want to invest into it long term, then Chisa is going to be an ideal pickup for you. I will say, once again, you can just choose to skip her right now and pull her on a rerun whenever she does actually have a negative status team that she is definitively really good in, but right now I would say her best in slot is Cartethyia teams. She's even able to allow Cartethyia to work without Shakona. It is not going to be that good. I do want to emphasize and repeat, it is not going to be that good, but it is at least a lot better than using Cartethyia without any sort of good negative status teammate. And also, if you do have Shakona, then at least this will offer you her best in slot team, if you're a really big Cartethyia fan, or if you simply just want to see your Chisa perform quite nicely. That's another thing I'd like to touch on. She is really good for Cartethyia in particular. If you're a big fan of the Divine Maiden, then Chisa is going to be a great pull for you. In fact, I would say the Divine Maiden is the main driving force as to why you would pull for Chisa. Otherwise, she's an easy skip. But if you really like Carta, then I would say that she is a perfectly fine investment for you. I do want to emphasize that she is only going to be an upgrade over Air Rover if you have Chisa Sig. So much of her value is tied to that, which I will talk about a little bit more later. But for now, just know that if you don't have Chisa Sig, it's not going to be anywhere near as good as if she does. But if she does, then because Cartethyia can apply some of her own negative status, she is going to be able to utilize that Sig quite nicely, and all around, you're going to get yourself the best in slot Carta team. Because Cartethyia is already so inherently strong, they didn't make Chisa too much of an upscale to her because then that would just start to get a little bit unbalanced. But ultimately, if you're looking for more ways to invest into your Divine Maiden, then Chisa is not necessarily a bad way to do so. Another thing that I should mention is that she is another third slot teammate to your account, and this is especially more relevant now that we have Double Pawn Matrix in the game. I will say that because we recently got Mornier, who even at S0R0 is able to be an extremely universal third slot teammate across your entire account, even though she's not necessarily Shorekeeper level at that point, but she is close at least. The value of having more niche third slot teammates like that has diminished a chunk, because now we're at a stage where while Chisa is nice to have, if you have Mornier and Shorekeeper, that's your middle tower basically covered, that's your Whimpering Wastes basically covered, and even your Double Pawn Matrix covered. Verena, Mornier, and Shorekeeper, that is all 6 charges worth of third slot teammates in Double Pawn Matrix, because the universal characters, they get 2 charges instead of 1 because Kuro knows how important they are to a vast majority of teams, whereas Chisa only has 1 charge. So ultimately, if you're getting Chisa for Double Pawn Matrix, it is likely just to really optimize your Cartethyia team and free up the more universal characters for other teams if you want to get a score that is as high as possible, in which case Chisa will serve you there, but once again, she is only really efficient if you manage to pull her Sig. Another thing that I should mention is that she has her own personal damage. So if you want to see your Chisa do some funny numbers, she's going to be able to do some alright damage. She's not necessarily going to be some crazy damage dealer or anything like that, but it's enough of a contribution to the point where you're going to be able to appreciate it. Another thing that I should mention is that if you choose to get sequences on your Chisa, she does suddenly start to do a whole lot more damage whenever you get S3. So if you're a Chisa superfan and you want to see her do a whole lot of damage, you can choose to invest sequences into her, but otherwise, yes, she is capable of doing some personal damage. It's definitely not going to be damage that is going to knock your socks off, but it is damage that is enough to the point where I do feel like highlighting this quality of hers is something that I should do, because you will notice it. And once again, if you have her signature weapon, then the situation is going to be even better for her. Now, that about wraps up the positives in regards to Chisa. The thing is with this character, she's popular. People like her quite a bit. But unfortunately, despite her popularity, she's just not that good. And I am going to be tearing her apart now, because while I do like the character, and while I do wish that she was better, I am not going to say that she's a good unit. The passage of time will help, but you should consider the fact that this character didn't come out that long ago. She literally came out in 2.8. She had one patch off of banners and now she's back. So it really hasn't been that long. In human terms, it's been long, a couple of months. But for gacha game standards, she has barely had any time to age. So I don't think it's that surprising that she's not really all that much better than when she first released. But I do need to address one thing. Aemeath is not gonna save her, man. Now, I already said this before, but that's just because I doubted that Aemeath was gonna have negative status in her kit in the first place. Kuro Games has now officially confirmed, yes, that is going to be the case. Alright, cool, she had negative status. I was really not expecting that, but here we are, I guess. But even so, I don't think Chisa is going to be the character to save Aemeath's negative status. I really don't think so. We need a second Sol teammate for Fusion Burst. If we don't have a second Sol teammate for Fusion Burst, then it's just not going to do much. We need the second slot teammate. All negative status teams are structured this way. The only way that you can make a negative status character free-to-play friendly is by giving them a 4-star negative status applicant. If they were willing to do that, everything would be solved. Negative status teammates would be so much more accessible, but Kuroa is just not interested in doing that. So, as of now, I honestly don't think that Aemeath is going to be saving Chisa or anything like that. Her meta value is literally the same as it was before. So, if you were hoping that Aemeath was going to save Chisa's value or something like that, that is not the case. She is going to be running alongside Aemeath. They do have a synergy if you choose to use Fusion Burst on Aemeath, but it's not like it's going to be anywhere near as good as the Toon Break mode, because we already have the complete Toon Break core in the game right now, which has been absolutely broken for ages. And listen, I'm sure if you insist that Chisa is eventually going to be a really good character in the future, you're right. I do think that at some point she is eventually going to get a good negative status team, but that time isn't now. I think a great comparison would be Cantarella. She released in 2.2, and that was just way too early for a character that just didn't really have any specific synergies. She was good with Donjin, she was good with Jinshi, but she wasn't really particularly insane anywhere, and then she eventually got Frolova. I feel like it's going to be the same case here, because ultimately Cantarella just released at a really awkward time, and I think it's probably gonna be the same here. Chisa just released way too early for her own good, or at least her kit released too early for its own good, because she just isn't really doing much in the meta at the minute, and Aemeath is not gonna help that. And another big flaw of hers is that she just cannot justify her cost. If you get Chisa to upgrade your Cartethyia team, that's awesome and all, and she's definitely a whole lot less clunky to play than Air Rover, so if you just don't want to play Air Rover anymore, to be honest, that's very valid. I don't really like playing Air Rover myself, though the animations are cool. So, okay, that's nice, but otherwise, unless you're getting her for that quality of life, she doesn't really improve Cartethyia that much. She improves her, but not really by enough of a margin to justify the amount of limited pulls that it costs to get a Chisa. She is a cool character and all, I like her animations, but she just doesn't justify her cost. Now, if you think that she's your awesome best waifu ever, okay, cool, then she's worth it to you, but if we're looking at this from a meta perspective, she cannot justify her cost. She just cannot. And it's a shame, but that's just sadly the reality of it. And a big part of this, which is another flaw of hers, is that she really needs her signature. Like, really needs it. You don't have that signature? What is the point in playing the character? Just gonna be completely honest here, what is the point? You don't have her signature, she loses like half her value. It's insane. She's a popular character, but she is not a good character. And listen, she has some niche use cases, but she genuinely doesn't feel like a 5-star right now. She has about as much meta relevance as some niche 4-star, and that is just the truth of the matter, unfortunately. You do have some reasons to get her, but unless you are a really dedicated Cartethyia fan, a really dedicated negative statuses fan, or just a really big Chisa fan, do not waste your astrite on this character when Lupa and Aemeath are going to be on the same half as her, when Galbrena, who is already a very good and formidable DPS, is going to be on the second half, when Luke, who we still don't really have much official information on, but seems to be a pretty promising unit so far, is going to be on the second half. Unless you're just a big fan of Chisa, in which case, I understand, get your character, if you really love her, just skip her. There is no such thing as a must pull in Wuthering Waves, correct? And there is no such thing as a must skip. But if there was a must skip in Wuthering Waves, she is dangerously close to Roshia right now. Like, dangerously close. She is still better than Roshia, definitely. I do think that she's in a far better position than Roshia, and I understand that I'm being, like, abysmally harsh on her right now, but that's just because I do not want you pulling this character thinking that she's going to make Fusion Burst Aemeath really good. You're going to be disappointed. If you can accept the fact that this character is not some huge upgrade to anything, then go for her, but just know that I don't think this is the end of the road for her. She will eventually be good. I do believe that. She will eventually be good. I trust that myself. But I don't think now is her time. She released just so not that long ago. So you really can't expect that much out of her, to be honest. I like this character, I want her to be better, but as it currently stands, yeah, there's just not much here. Hopefully this video was able to tell you Chisa's biggest pros and cons. This has been Juice, signing out, and I'm sure one day her day will come, but that day is not today.